are being joined by Mike Buckley, a senior journalist and political commentator from Sheffield, England. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, we're getting reports that fruits and vegetables have been rotting across UK fields because there aren't enough people willing to pick them up. Yet, Braverman is opposed to granting visas to people who could help end this crisis. Why is that the case, and why is she so opposed to this issue?
This is about politics and not about farming or fruit or vegetables. If the government was doing the right thing for the UK and making the sensible economic choice and the sensible choice for our agriculture industry, they would, of course, seek to get people to come from the EU or from somewhere else in the world to come and pick fruit here. And indeed, before Brexit, before we left the European Union, we used to have hundreds of thousands to come here, often permanently, some seasonally, to work in our agriculture industry and to pick fruit and pick vegetables and do other work as needed to make that industry function. And that's because these jobs are very hard work, often quite low paid, and there are not enough people in the UK who are willing to do those jobs. What's happened since then is that the current government, they're worried about their ability to win the general election, which is going to come next year. They want to appeal to the anti-immigrant vote in the UK, which sadly does exist. And this is part of their way of doing it. So it's a bit of a desperate political move from a government that is very far behind in the polls and is desperate. But of course, it does huge harm to our agriculture industry and it does harm to our country. And of course, in a world where there are food shortages and where we need to make use of every opportunity that we have to grow food for ourselves and climate change, etc., it's a bad move for the economy, it's a bad move for people, and it's a bad move for climate change and the environment as well. The alternative would be to allow people into the country, which would be the right thing to do. But Suella Braverman, she talks about wanting a high-wage, high-skill economy. That's not the same thing as having people come here to pick fruits and vegetables in our fields. I mean, clearly that is not a high-skill job. It's never going to be a high-wage job. You don't need training to do it. If she wants a high-skill, high-wage economy, then she and her government should invest in training, invest in education for British people and anybody else who lives in the UK. But that's different from allowing or not allowing people to come here and pick vegetables, which is not a high-skill job.
Absolutely. It's interesting you make that point because the political move, as you mentioned, is going against economic growth. And this is exactly what I wanted to speak about. Immigration has always been a polarizing issue in the United Kingdom, but immigrants have been a major contributor to the UK economy. I have some numbers with me here. The Dustman and Fratini has, according to them, it says that the non-European migrants contributed about £88 billion from 2001 to 2011. So how do you assess this problem and how do you think the government can find a midway?
We have a very poor quality of debate on immigration in this country. And we have had for many, many years. So there's a right-wing view, as personified by Suella Braverman, who's the current Home Secretary, that immigration is a bad thing for the country, we should bring numbers down. When the David Cameron government came in 2010, they made a promise then to bring net migration down to the tens of thousands, for the same reason as a way to appeal to people who don't like immigration because they're racist or for some other reason, to try and get their votes. Of course, since then, immigration has never gone anywhere near the tens of thousands. It's always been in the hundreds of thousands, and I think this year it may even go up towards 1 million, in part because of the incoming numbers of Ukrainian, Afghan and Hong Kong refugees, but in part because, particularly post-Brexit, we need people of working age to come and live in our country and to work. On top of everything else, on top of the loss of EU workers, we have an ageing population, so an increasing proportion of people who are elderly and retired. So we need more people of working age to come into the UK. Unfortunately, on the other side, on the left-wing or progressive side of the debate, or just the rational side of the debate, there have not been the same loud voices saying exactly what you just said to me, which is that immigrants bring significant benefit to our economy in terms of the work that they provide. I know that incoming migrants start more businesses per capita than British-born people. This would in part be because, sadly, of racism within the UK, which will mean it's harder for people of other origin to get jobs. But it's also because people who come, cross borders tend to be very entrepreneurial. So they start businesses, they employ other people, and they contribute to the British economy. And indeed, in many cases, migrants are willing to do jobs that sadly British people are often not, like the fruit picking we were talking about earlier on, and also often low-paid jobs in social care. Okay. This is in part because the countries that these people come from, often wages are lower. So a low wage here is a high wage back home, and they often, as you know, send remittances back home to help out family and friends.
All right, all right. Thank you for all those insights, Mr. Mike Buckley.